What's going on, Reefers? Blaine here. I'm with Antonio. Antonio, thank you so much for having us over. I'm really excited. It's been way too long since we talked about a tank tour. So today, Antonio, let's get right into it, man. What size system do we have here and what's the make of the tank?
Yeah, so this is a 150-gallon display tank. It's got about 30 in the sump and it's a Cade 1500.
Yeah, I think when I initially walked in, big shout out to Cade in this situation. Honestly, I thought it was a custom system. The way you have it all set up, did not realize that this is some of the cabinetry work that they can obviously provide to you. So really love, it's one of those first things you see as soon as you walk into the space. Was that ultimately the plan for you guys?
It was. For me, the house is like a mid-century modern house. I wanted to have something that was a focal point, and I didn't want something that looked like it was in the basement. I wanted it to be out there. I obviously put my heart and soul into it, and so I enjoyed the design aspect of it. So yeah, so I wanted something that looked clean, that looked finished, but I wasn't ready to go into a built-in. So I did the best I could.
I get excited when I get to see some of the systems that we had a little bit of hands-on playing with when it comes to these systems. This was a tank that actually was almost 2 tanks at one point, and it was over in your office space. Walk us through the journey of how the tank has now got to here.
Sure. So I started probably about 2.5 years ago, 3 years ago, and I had an Ocean Forest, the Aqua Forest Ocean Guard 275. So it was a cube. I had it right over here across the thing, and that was my pride and joy, and that's kind of what got me going into it. I spent about a year in that. Lots of successes, lots of failures. You know, the whole learning curve was real, but I got so excited that I decided that I also wanted to have one in my office, which is about 3 miles from here. And that's where this tank came in. So I had the Ocean Guard here at the house, and I had this tank at the office. When I set it up, I realized pretty quickly that I did not enjoy doing maintenance on 2 separate tanks. You know, because again, you come home after work, long day, you get to tweak around, look at the fish, look at the coral. That's fun. But what was not fun is then turn around on a Monday morning, show up at the office, and you're going to have, you know, the issues of a new tank. So that was very real. And quickly I learned that I did not enjoy having 2 locations, maybe 2 tanks, but not 2 locations. So then we went through a process of probably about 6-7 months of playing out how could I merge them together. And then where you all came in is helping me get this out of the office and getting it set back up here. One of the priorities though, I did have you guys actually servicing the tank at the office because I didn't want to deal with the water. The water changes was really the biggest issue. I was in an office facility. I didn't want to have a water station, all that stuff. Kayla would come in every 2 weeks and help me out with the maintenance and the water changes. When we decided to migrate it over here, and something I discussed with my wife, she thought, you know, we approved the location, she approved the concept. But what I wanted to make sure and do is not have to do with water changes anymore, because our water station's outside of the house, and you know I'm carrying the buckets every weekend. And with this, now we're getting into the volume that was probably about going to be like 20 gallons. So now I'm doing 4 buckets, and you know it's a long haul over here. So where really I engaged with you guys was to let's get this as automated as possible, specifically with the ATO and the water changes.
Gotcha. So a lot of automation gone into this system. Very important in today's day of reefing. You know, a lot of people have started to utilize automation to have success with their reef tanks. Let's talk about the livestock we went with. You've got a mixture in here. We'll start with the corals. What was the plan for the corals?
So again, for me, the biggest concern or the priority was I was really happy with my cube, and that's really the center structure here. So what I wanted to do is, all right, I've had success. It was about as packed as I could get it, and I wanted to make sure that I didn't lose that momentum coming over here. So, and it again, this was my first tank ever. I started from ground zero. You know, I watch your videos. People have been doing it for I've been doing it for 3 years. Like everybody else, I started with, you know, the softies, the torches, the beginner, and so you can kind of see it from the ground up. That's where everything started. And then by the end, again, about a year or 2 ago, I was ready to start playing around with the SPS kind of stuff. So that's really kind of the center structure. And then when I had this tank at the office, it was mostly softy dominant. The 2 rock structures, they've been rearranged, but basically those 2 rock structures we're more a linear layout. And then when we decided to bring it over here, we kind of separated, and then a lot of the corals actually from the original tank got spread out across the top, and then we've just been slowly filling in everything since then.
Gotcha. Yeah, and it's definitely the slow progression of a reefer, right? You kind of start out with some of that stuff you can trust in, and they can kind of be lenient with when it comes to the parameters, and then working your way up to some of the corals. I see a lot of really nice ones, though. We've got a big ORA pearlberry. We've got the snozberry. You've got all kinds of really amazing corals in here. I love the ganies, too. That's something I wanted to ask you was, how have you had such great success with some of these ganies? Because they look amazing.
Yeah, so to tell you the truth, the ganies, I've been lucky enough. I've been successful with them since the first one I got. So I have not lost, really, maybe one of them over time I've lost, but that was probably when the tank was about 6 months old. I started getting the little gani garden going, and those I've had no issues with. So I've been, you know, one of those. I know every tank is different and what succeeds and what doesn't, but the ganies have been pretty easy for me.
I think a testament to aquacultured corals in general, you know, how strong and resilient they've become. Something that I've seen in so many systems is the idea of like creating gardens, right? A hammer garden, a gani garden. What I like about your tank is it's kind of everything mixed together. It's not just one coral segregated by itself or all of the chalices here, things like that. You do have a mixture of all things all over the place, which I like because it kind of creates the madness, the craziness of a real reef.
Right, and what I was trying to do too, there was a thought behind that, is to, since it's a very minimalist landscape or aquascape, you know, I have no bottom, so it does get to be a little stark. So to try and tie it all in, let's say I'll have ganies over here, but there'll still be ganies, like almost, you know, aviapora on each island. I thought it'd be something that was consciously trying to tie it all in together somehow.
You mentioned the scape. I think that's something ultimately a lot of people forget, is that you allowed the scape to be an area that it was going to let the corals grow and become the real scape, right? The corals ultimately become the structure of the reef. You kind of create the baseline with your rock scape, but you're allowing a lot of these SPS to kind of really create that, you know, extravagant, different structure to what the reef's got going on. Now let's talk about your fish. A huge mixture of fish. Let's talk about with what fish you went with.
So first of all, again, when we moved the tank over, I think we moved it, it's been about 6-7 months now. I did have a gem tang, a purple tang, and I had yellow tangs. When I moved it over, at the time I was dealing also with, I had thrown everything at it, and some of the meat corals were not happy, the acans weren't happy. So I really took advantage of, I wanted to make sure that I did not have aggression issues moving forward. Knowing that the tangs were kind of going to be the bosses of the place, I did go ahead. I'm lucky enough that I live down the street from TSA, so I can kind of go over there, you know, pretty frequently. And I was able to trade in some of the fish and get back. And then that's when we just went with the 3 yellow tangs. And that's kind of where my wife and I wanted to start out with. We always feel like the yellow tangs it's just a happy looking fish. It automatically brightens up the tank. So we started with those 3. And then from that, starting the lyre tails were already with us. So we have 4 females and 1 male in there. And they've been kind of there from the beginning. And then so I literally was just trying to think color wise, how can I mix everything? So then we started with the damsels. We have 2 different types of damsels in here. Again, nothing really super exotic. They're all aquacultured. So I've also, the other thing, I've been trying to kind of stay with the aquaculture just because they seem healthier. They last longer, and I don't have to be dealing with swapping out fish. Then after that, you know, we have some chromis that came over from the other tank. And then from that, we just kind of start filling in, you know, what I call the charismatic fish, you know, having an algae blenny in there. You know, that's like the old man of the tank. We're always kind of looking for them. We have 2 clownfish. Again, nothing super exotic, just, you know, they're black and white, and they seem to be doing their job. I have a pajama cardinal back there, but he kind of hides in the back. We have a couple mandarins in there. One is a wild mandarin, and then we did get an aquaculture, a small one, just trying to cover the bases to see if we could. But surprisingly enough, both of them have been done really well, so I'm really pleased with that. And then I think we have a couple fairy wrasses in there, and then we have the melaneris for pest control kind of thing.
I will say, sometimes you go and I get to visit these systems and I see some extravagant different fish collections. I really like the fish collection you have here because it's a budget-friendly fish selection, but at the same time, it looks really good too. And you said it off camera, you know, the negative scape your scape creates, it allows the fish kind of to fill all that extra space up as well. And then I saw the pair of angels as well. The angels are beautiful. Some of my favorite here in the system. How long have you had the angels in the tank?
About a year. So I did get the male. I think it's a wild male. I got it like that, and then I did. I think the other one's or a female. So I wanted to kind of pair them up. I might add in a couple more females. That's kind of like the last thing that I'll probably do. Because again, what you were mentioning, I was consciously trying. I knew my scape was minimalist. The whole tank, there are a lot of negative space. I wanted fish that would shoal. So that's really where I've been trying to get to, is that they're active within that negative area up top.
Again, another system showcasing multiple shoaling fish species all together, and success is showing. Let's talk about your cleanup crew. I see some brittle stars or the serpent stars hanging out underneath the rockwork. What else are we using for some of our cleanup crew, and why so many serpent stars?
The serpent stars, they're like the red serpent stars. I find them fascinating. I find them beautiful. I mean, we have a couple serpent stars that I started out with. I grew up in the Caribbean. I'm in Florida, so I've been in the Keys. I was always fascinated with picking up a rock, and you see what's under there. So to me, the inverts, honestly like some of the more interesting stuff. So the red serpent stars, I'd never seen them red, and once I discovered that they existed, anytime that one pops up, I would get one. So I probably have about 5 of them in there, and then usually they'll come out at night or whenever we're feeding, all the tentacles come out. Other than that, pretty much like the standard cleanup crew. I try and keep a little bit of everything. I have a variety of snails, obviously no Necerius because again, no sand bed. And then we have emerald crabs. I have a couple Pithos crabs in there. So again, I try and maintain, again, I'm in luxury of being in Orlando. There's like plenty of supplies for reefing supplies here in Orlando. So I can always go over to the store and pick up, a few things if I see something dies out. So I have a little mix of it. I have the blue leg hermit crabs, and then again, like a mixture of all the snails.
You mentioned the cube used to have the reborn media down on the bottom of the system. You said it worked for that tank.
Yeah.
This system, we're going bare bottom.
Yeah.
Was there a reason you went with the bare bottom on this tank in particular?
Yeah, so actually on this tank, and its older iteration at the office, it was, I did have reborn. Again, since I had 2 tanks and this one wasn't getting the love that it deserved, it was kind of building up a little detritus. I also did not have the flow that I have on this now. Like now this is, I cranked up the flow. So it just aesthetically, it wasn't looking the way that I wanted to. So I removed all the reborn. Now, when I did that though, I did not anticipate that all of a sudden the parameters of the tank, really the nitrates spiked. And that was not something I had been anticipating. And that was right before we were going to merge the tanks. So we spent probably about 3 months trying to, with water changes and trying to stabilize it so I could get both parameters matching so then we could merge the tanks. So that was something I did not anticipate, and it did take us about 3 months to kind of get it back in line.
Mention the flow. Let's start talking about some of the pieces of equipment that are making this tank run. We'll start from the top with our lights and kind of work our way into the tank.
Okay. So up top we have an ATI Straighten Flex. So the Flex is, I wanted, again, something very clean looking. To me, the aesthetics really mattered of the equipment just as much as the tank. So the Straighten Flex, to me, was a perfect solution. It fit perfectly over the tank. I don't have to have a lot of wires. On the 2 motors, we have the AI Orbits in the back, the 2 gyres. And then over in the corner in the back, I have an MP40. So which clears out the detritus, and it's usually running about 60%, and then around lunch it will kick up to 90%, and it clears out all the detritus on the bottom.
Gotcha. And then up top, hooking to the side of the tank, we've got a plank auto feeder. How are you liking the plank?
I love the plank. I've had that since day one. For me, I travel a lot for work, so the feeding was that was the first automation that I did, right? And so I've had that since day one. It's pretty easy. Now I have a pretty complex setup automation, but I had like a Amazon power strip that I could schedule like off of my phone. So I was able to kind of do automated feedings, and so it allowed me also to control the nutrient in the water pretty easily, because if they're high, I could turn it down a little bit and I could do it all from my phone.
Right. And as we work our way down into the sump space, what do we have for nutrient control and other things down in the sump? And then what's the brain of the system too?
Okay. So I'm pretty much hydros everything. So I have the XP10, XP8, and then we do have a couple of dosers in there for the water changes. So we have auto water changes in there as well. So on the sump, we have the Red Sea roller mat. We've had that since day one on the original tank. And then we have the skimmer in the back. Love that skimmer. It's very easy to dial in. It's the cause and effect of it is pretty nice. So I've been really happy with that. I do have a little, my little frag area, and then I have some algae in there with a refugium to help with the phosphates. And
then the reactor, you just running carbon in that?
I sometimes it does have GFO in there, and then based off of whatever wherever the parameters are, I can dial it up or down. What's nice with the Cade down in there, you do have the manifold that comes automatically with two different extenders on it. So I have a UV light here, and then the other manifolds going into the reactor.
Is the UV running 24/7?
It is.
Do you have that going 24/7?
It is, yeah. I have not adjusted much of that. I haven't really even got that far.
Have you seen that's been beneficial for both fish health and for like microalgae, things like that?
I can tell you from the UV perspective, we're pretty stable with the fish. So again, you're always, if you have 30 odd fish, you're going to have some issues, but fish stability, I've been really pleased with. I can only attribute that to the UV. And then for the AI light, refugium always helps. So, and it also gives me a little bit grow out area here. I have some zoetiles and some mushrooms down there that allows me to keep the scape clean while this is where I grow out stuff.
Maintenance-wise, I know we've talked about the idea of trying to create a system that is, off or your hands off, right? But what does maintenance look like for you when we're talking about a system that we're trying to ultimately automate as much as possible?
Sure. So I mentioned the water changes are automated. I do 3 gallons a day. So roughly about 12% per week is that's coming out of it, and that turns on automatically in the morning around 6 o'clock. I have the hydros for dosing, part A, part B. And again, that's happening right after the water change finishes. From a detritus standpoint, honestly, the system, I've been really pleased with how dialed in it is. I do have a schedule where all the pumps will kick on overdrive right around noon, and it will wash out any detritus. You can see right there, I get a little bit. That's about as much as I ever get. So from that standpoint, it's pretty low maintenance. The rest of it is your typical stuff. I do like to keep the back clean. So, twice a month, I'll scrape that. And then the glass, honestly, I enjoy cleaning the glass every day. That's my little bit of zen.
I like the idea of basically putting your pumps into overdrive for how long is that period? Is it like a 10-minute period?
I do have it for about 45 minutes.
Okay, so it's 45 minutes, and then it pretty much ramps it up to a high output of flow.
That's right.
Gotcha. So you're basically trying to kick over as much as possible, get it down into that roller.
Exactly. Yeah.
Because I will say, for it being bare bottom, definitely extremely clean. You like you said, you have a couple spots here and there. The other thing I'm curious about, with it being bare bottom, are you fighting corals off from being on the bottom? Do you want something on the bottom?
If you look, most of the corals, I use these little frag rocks too. So I'm always playing around with the composition, and they start touching each other. So most of them are not, they have not grown in yet. So that's part of it. 2, I do want them to be able to be removed so I can kind of keep on adjusting without having really get into moving the rockscape. The only ones that really have made it so far down are these zoas. And again, I do kind of trim them up to keep them up. I have made a conscious decision just from an aesthetic standpoint that I don't want the corals going down there. I like the starkness. I know it's not for everybody, but for me, I do like the white bottom and how it contrasts with the rocks and the corals.
What are we feeding the tank when it comes to our fish and our corals? What are we actively feeding these guys?
I I do have, I think it's Vitalis pellets, and I have some algae pellets in there. And again, that goes off about, because I had the Amphius and whatnot. I wanted, it feeds 5 times a day. In the morning, I'll feed frozen, usually a little bit, I'll mix up the cubes every day just to make sure that they're getting something different. With the corals, I feed, I believe it's Benepets. So I'll feed that a couple times a week. And then I also have oyster feast that I'll feed a couple times a week.
And then for the dosing, what products are we actively dosing? Obviously, we have the automatic water changes happening. What salt is it, by the way?
Aquaforce.
Aquaforce, okay. And then what are we actively dosing on top of
So
those
I have
the
the Brightwell A and B is what I'm doing. And then I use Aquaforce for the microelements. I use Aquaforce component 1, 2, 3.
I'm curious to hear now, with the automation, what are the goal numbers for this system?
Yeah, so alkalinity is right around 8.5. My calcium's always running around the 420, 450 number. The phosphates, they'll bounce around from 0.02 to 0.12, something like that. Honestly, I haven't seen much change in the tank if it goes one way or another, and that's when I hit the reactor. Just to kind of keep it somewhere in the middle of that. Other than that, magnesium never seems to be much of a factor for me, so I don't monitor that very often. It just hasn't been anything to worry about.
Kind of hard to see off camera. People won't be able to see it, but there is some large windows, right? With a lot of natural light. Have you seen the natural light causing any extra issues for algae or things like that?
Again, I wouldn't know anything different because this is how I started. It's always been in this room, but no, I don't. I do have a couple buddies that, help out with the tank. They live down the street, and I don't, I help them with their, I don't think I have any more algae than they do. So no, I have not. And yeah, as you mentioned, it's fairly large windows, lots of natural light in here. Have not really had, I think like anything else, once you get it dialed in, you're just adjusting it to whatever situation the tank is in.
When I started reefing, it felt like finding information was kind of hard. Getting the information you wanted was a little difficult, starting reefing back in the 90s at this point. Today's day and age, there's so much information out there. It's almost at this point where it's like saturation of, information. What did you do being a new reef keeper to try and find the right information that's led to success that you have here today?
Yeah, chiefly, so going back 3 years ago, maybe 3.5 years ago, when I really started delving into research, it was mostly YouTube. There was BRS, and you guys, there was, a couple other channels that, and I just, would come home at night and just watch the videos and really I didn't have any books on it. I know back in the day, that's kind of how you got the information. I wasn't really on the forums, but I watched lots of YouTube videos. Nowadays, again, 3 years from that, for me, and I know not everybody subscribed, but to me, AI is, I do everything via AI. The motor schedule, that was AI suggestion to do it at that time. The motor placement was AI. Even the rockscape, I would take pictures of it, upload it to AI and say, give me feedback, and it would let me know. It's amazing nowadays what the resources are. And I know, 2 years ago, that wasn't this situation, but now, I'm in tech world. I have to deal with AI every day, and I've really leaned into it with that. And really the level of automation, the detail. I have one motor that's, they reverse each other at noon, stuff like that I would have never thought of because I'm more kind of like a set it and forget it kind of guy. But they'll actually reverse direction at noon, but that was like an AI suggestion. The clearing out the detritus for a 45-minute period at the setting, all AI. Again, it's just another resource like anything else, but it certainly helps. When you're getting into this and you're trying to kind of tweak everything and get it dialed in as best as you can.
Now that you've had the success with the tank, are you starting to see opportunities where you're like, I might want to swap this out, put something else in, a new coral? Do you have any dream fish or things that you'd like to get into this system right now?
Yeah, fish-wise, I've been really happy with the fish selection. Again, it's stable, there's movement, there's color. I'll probably get a couple more of the swallowtails. Just a couple more females, just again to get a little bit more of that harem kind of look. And coral wise, Yeah, as things, especially mostly the acros, as things grow out, and if I wanted to make sure first to fill out the scape, but now as they're starting to get a little bit bigger, and then organically I swap them out for maybe something a little bit, more nuanced in color, or but honestly, I'm really happy where I'm at. It's not like there's anything that I feel that is missing or that I'm yearning for.
I ask every single person whenever I come into their home, again, thank you for letting us come by. This has been a lot of fun checking out this system. You've been keeping reef tanks for 3 years now. Mm-hmm. That is a long period of time when it comes to reef tanks, because a lot of people get in and out within a year.
Sure.
What has allowed you, what's a piece of advice you would give someone to be able to maintain and then create a system like this?
For me, it was almost religion, the 10% water change from day one. Again, I have a couple friends that we've set up their tanks in the meantime. It's religion, 10% water change. And it helps, especially when you're setting it up. You don't have to be dosing. At least it's a cheat code for keeping it going. Since then, honestly, I keep on thinking AI is just an amazing tool now for something as very niche as this is, using whatever resources you have. But I think most of us now have phones that have AI on it. And the fact that now you can just ask it a question about your dosing, your parameters, why is this happening? What are some setup issues? I really think that's kind of like the great new resource that people maybe aren't calculating yet.
Well, thank you again for letting us stop by, talk about your system, learn more about how we're integrating more and more technology in today's reefing age. If you guys have hung out all the way till the end, I want to say thank you guys so much. If you have any questions for Antonio about his system that we didn't talk about in today's video, feel free, drop them down in the comments below. Thank you guys so much for watching. Be sure to like, subscribe, and hit the bell notification so you guys don't miss out on any future uploads.